So before I got COVID, that was, I got COVID 4 years ago. And prior to that, I was a personal trainer. So I was running fitness classes. I was doing wellness coaching. I also had a background in human nutrition. So I'm a dietitian. And I always considered myself as fit, healthy, and I kind of practiced what I preached. And then I got COVID. So once I got COVID, it just completely changed my life, because I went from being very active to completely sedentary. I didn't know what was happening to me. I don't think anyone, when they get COVID, thinks about the long journey of long COVID, because I hadn't even heard of it, and many people hadn't back then. And so what's happened in the last 4 years is, in and out of the ER, the hospital, doctor's visits, but I'm very grateful that I am a whole lot better than I was, but I'm not still recovered. I mean, the reason that I'm here is the importance and the pillar that Breathwork has offered me in my recovery, and finding out about Oxygen Advantage and Butico. That was kind of my lifeline, and Breathwork and learning to functionally breathe has certainly helped me, because prior to that, I was a dysfunctional breather. So, being an athlete all those years and running marathons and doing triathlons, I was a huffing, puffing mouth breather. But it's not until you can't breathe, which was one of my symptoms. I had incredible breathlessness. It's not until that happens to you that you realize how important it is that you learn to breathe.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to Take a Deep Breath. My name is Mike Maher, and I'm a breathing coach, and I get to host this podcast where we talk to people from all walks of life related to breath and wellness and happiness and spirituality and everything that sits in between. I've got quite an important podcast today. This is with Vikki Jones, and she's a breathing instructor that is an ex-professional athlete and personal fitness trainer who caught COVID. And still has, to this day, well, we're now 3-4 years on, has long COVID. And she will explain to us what is long COVID, how more people than we know have it. So if we have a COVID and we've got something going on still, maybe our energy levels are off, or we get out of breath more, or things just trigger us more, there's a good chance that maybe you've got a touch of long COVID. And what's good about Vikki is she's combined her wellness experience, her fitness experience, and her breathing experiences to put together a real holistic view of what we can do. And she's patient zero, right? She's working on herself. And so I met Vikki 2 years ago. And when we got back together to do this podcast, I was astounded about how different she was this time, how much more energy and vibrancy and more zest she had for everything. It felt like I was speaking to a completely different person from 2 years ago. She's been through everything, and she's tried so many breathing techniques. So you may not have long COVID. You may have a family member that's been a bit off since COVID, or you may have a friend that's been a little bit off, or you may just have felt something's not quite right. And I think this is a really interesting podcast for you, because there's a lot of stuff to glean. We talk about what are the best breathing techniques, how to energize ourselves, what doesn't work. We talk also about things like nicotine, and there's so much in this. And so even if you're feeling, tippy toppy fantastic, there's probably a couple of things that you'll get from this show as well. Before we get into Vikki's podcast, if you could do me one favor, one teeny tiny favor, if you could click the follow or like button wherever you're listening or watching to this, it would mean the world to me. It helps grow the podcast as well. And it means we get more guests on here, and we kind of just keep repeating that nice circle of helping people learn. So if you could do that, please. And here is Vikki. Thank you. Hey, Vikki, welcome to the Take a Deep Breath podcast. It's lovely to have you on here. How are you doing today?
I'm having an okay day. And those are the ones we celebrate. So I was able to go out for a little walk this morning for 15 minutes, and that's always good to get outside and breathe. But you never know what's coming down the long COVID journey. So, like I said, I celebrate the good days. Celebrate the good days.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really good knowledge podcast for people out there, because I think there's a lot of people suffering. Maybe they're not all aware of why. And so I'm really looking forward to sharing your story and getting some of your knowledge. I wonder if you could just tell us, first of all, could you just define as best as you can what is long COVID?
I could try.
Yeah.
I might get a Nobel Peace Prize for it because nobody knows. What is long COVID? Long COVID is when you get infected with COVID and then you don't recover. So the symptoms of COVID subside, but then you are left with a myriad of other symptoms that are classed as long COVID. So that
and
is...
Sorry.
Go ahead.
There's a bit of a lag. No, you go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, you go there.
No, you go ahead.
What are some of those symptoms that could be classed as long COVID symptoms?
Shortness of breath, tiredness, incredible fatigue, cognitive dysfunction, the inability to exercise. So what we call as post-exertional malaise. So you go work out and then 2 days later you are flat in the bed for a couple of days. And it is dysautonomia. So anything that is to do with your nervous system, Mike, it goes awry. So the things that we take for granted, digestion, breathing, regulation of some of our body systems, they are just kind of all out of balance. So it's everyone who has long COVID presents very differently. We all have our own little journeys that we're on, but nobody has exactly the same symptoms. And I think that's one of the reasons it's so distressing when you're trying to deal with it, because, it's not like we all fit into this, we don't look the same.
Yeah, and is it fair to say that the demographic isn't consistent either? Is it like all different people, different walks of life? Just share a little bit about what that looks like. Who gets long COVID?
Everyone is susceptible to long COVID. If you get infected with the COVID virus, then you are a candidate for long COVID. So I see myself, of course, I'm a super athlete, or was. So I see it, and I mean that very glibly now because that's not what I am anymore. But a lot of athletes get long COVID. All ages get long COVID, all walks of life. It tends to be more female dominant than male, but there are certainly a lot of males that have it, or races. So, there is no one who is safe from it. And we see even children getting it now. They have a hard time expressing their symptoms, but they usually start talking about having tummy aches and, just the things that don't usually happen to kids. They don't have that verbal capacity to say, I've got long COVID, or this is happening, I can't think, or the other things. But like I said, all ages.
Wow. So is it fair to say that because it's so varied and it's so many different demographics, do you think it's going undiagnosed a lot of time, or misdiagnosed?
It's going misdiagnosed. And of course, we've only had COVID around for 4 years. And until, the first wave of people with COVID didn't recover, then there was no such thing as long COVID. So it's like this, we don't have, unfortunately, the answers and the treatment to actually treat the symptoms, because we don't even know. I mean, I can say what causes long COVID, it's COVID, but we don't have a way to either do the tests and have a definitive testing system, or even biomarkers that we would normally go and have these scans done, or respiratory tests done, or, all these things that we take for granted that will pick up on medical issues. long COVID kind of goes right under the radar. They don't pick them up, and then people fall out of the medical system because, we unfortunately get gaslit. People are said, well, this must be in your head, or, we don't have a treatment, and it's confounding a lot of people. So,
yeah,
scary.
Scary, very scary. If I'm trying to think the best way to phrase this question. Is there any, so in terms of you get COVID, then some people get long COVID, is there any data, or have you seen anything like, and for example, people that got COVID in 2020, they got long COVID, but people that get COVID now, they don't get long COVID as much. Is there any of that going on? For example, I know that the COVID is a little bit less pungent than it was a few years ago, apparently. So, are you seeing, regardless of when they got COVID, you can still get long COVID? I'm just going to cut to the chase. If you're looking to reduce stress and anxiety, deepen your own breathwork practice, connect with like-minded people, come and give us a try in our community. This isn't a sad Facebook group. This is a vibrant place on a platform called School. It's the up-and-coming place for all things communities. And I'm in there breathing live almost every single day. People are coming to me because it's the accountability. We're holding each other accountable. We're doing the breath work. Each month we do a completely new module based on something to do with the breath and mind and body. And I'm bringing in expert guests. We've already had some wonderful breath celebrities come in and teach us some things about breathing. So why not sign up now? There's a 7-day money back promise if you don't like what's in there. My goal is for you to fall in love with us in this community. So the link is down below. Hope to see you in there. Let's get back on with the podcast.
Well, I don't know the statistics on that, Mike, but what I do know is there's a lot of people who didn't realize they had long COVID. And because of the awareness now, like today, I know this isn't going out today, but today is March 17th. Today is Long COVID Awareness Day. And so there's a lot of people that have been walking around with it, and they weren't even aware that they had it. So you've got people coming into the system. But the people that definitely, I was in that first wave, and there's a lot of people that have not recovered from that first wave of the COVID virus that turned into long COVID. But there are some people that have recovered. I think it's more the awareness that people are coming in and going, yeah, I've got the symptoms of long COVID.
Yeah. Vicky, would you mind sharing like a bit of your backstory? Like, what were you doing pre-COVID? I know you've got a career as an athlete. So if you could just share with us a bit about your backstory, and then how you found yourself in this position you're in now, where you're talking about long COVID and helping people.
So before I got COVID, that was, I got COVID almost 4 years ago. And prior to that, I was a personal trainer. So I was running fitness classes. I was doing wellness coaching. I also had a background in human nutrition. So I'm am dietitian. And I always considered myself as fit, healthy, and I kind of practiced what I preached. And then I got COVID. So once I got COVID, it just completely changed my life, because I went from being very active to completely sedentary. And, it was just, I didn't know what was happening to me. I don't think anyone, when they get COVID, thinks about the long journey of long COVID, because I hadn't even heard of it. And many people hadn't back then. And so what's happened in the last 4 years is, in and out of the ER, the hospital, doctor's visits. But I'm very grateful that I am a whole lot better than I was, but I'm not still recovered. And I mean, the reason that I'm here is, the importance and the pillar that breathwork has offered me in my recovery. And finding out about Oxygen Advantage and Butico, that was kind of my lifeline. It really was. And for people with long COVID, they know what it feels like to not have any light at the end of the tunnel, no help. or no answers. And breath work and learning to functionally breathe has certainly helped me, because prior to that, Mike, I was a dysfunctional breather. So, being an athlete all those years and running marathons and doing triathlons, I was a huffing, puffing mouth breather. And, we didn't know any different. But it's not until you can't breathe, which was one of my symptoms. I had incredible breathlessness. It's not until that happens to you that you realize how important it is that you learn to breathe. And that's kind of, been my journey. And that's what I sit in and talk to people about on a daily basis, and, offer hope through coaching of functional breathing for people with long COVID.
Yeah. So you've definitely been on that journey, and I think it's wonderful to have you as somebody that's able to share that experience, that lived experience. As we spoke before the podcast was recorded, I've had a number of conversations with people that have had long or do have long COVID, but I would be much more comfortable than speaking to somebody like yourself who's got that lived experience. Obviously, it's an awful thing to go through. I can imagine. What if we were to focus a bit on some of the breathing techniques, and maybe if we just take a step back, maybe if you could just help people and just define functional versus dysfunctional might be the first place to start, so people that are fresh to this can get that view, and then maybe then just give us a flavour, because I know everyone's going to be different, every client responds differently. What are some of the techniques that have and haven't worked for long COVID?
Okay, so what we find with people with long COVID is we are in that state of fight or flight. So we are sympathetically driven. The anxiety and all of the myriad of symptoms that come with long COVID just put us into the chronic stress, the chronic sickness. That's where we are. So a lot of the clients that I work with, they present with dysfunctional breathing, meaning they're mouth breathers, they are upper chest breathers, they experience breathlessness. So they think that by opening their mouth and breathing with their mouth, they'll get more air, which we know isn't the case. And they can't turn off. They can't get into that rest and digest mode, that parasympathetic. So the exercises that we focus on are the down regulators, helping them understand how they can help their unique symptoms, which sometimes are non-respiratory, how they can help them with breathing, what obviously the disbenefit of mouth breathing, making them aware of their breath, helping them breathe in a relaxed manner, and to stop that hyperventilation. We know how bad that is for us, our biochemistry. And then teaching them, biomechanically how to breathe, because many people with long COVID have got this issue. They've got issues with their lungs, but also they have issues with their diaphragm. And they can't engage that diaphragm to breathe, which we know is part of that functional breath. And then, the other thing is we teach them the self-regulation exercises. So when we get into that state of extreme anxiety, or, we have these relapses that scare the bejeebers out of you, it's giving them self-regulation techniques or emergency exercises that they can do, that they can get them in or out of that state that they are sort of usually falling into. So, it's like a two-phase thing. We teach them that functional breathing. And then after you've got that, and that takes a little while for them, if you haven't been using your diaphragm, if you've been doing this upper chest, most people with long COVID can't hold their breath for more than 5 or 6 seconds because, there is something amiss with our systems. But once we've taught them that, we focus on the sleep and we focus on the self-regulation exercises just to get them into that down regulation. And hopefully that then helps their, autonomic nervous system just get rebalanced.
Yeah. Well, what are some of those not down regulation, what are some of those balance and regulation tools you're using? What breathing techniques are you using there?
So we use many small breath holds, which is, the inhale, the exhale, pinch your nose, and we have them hold their breath for 3 seconds and then breathe normally. So that's one of the ones we use. Hands cupping is a great one because of us re-inhaling that carbon dioxide. And we use, what else do we use? Humming. That's a great one. A lot of people with long COVID, there is a theory out there about vagus nerve dysfunction. So the vagus nerve has either been infected with the COVID virus, or because of the cytokine storm that we get, you get the dysautonomia that comes along with the infection of the vagus nerve. So humming is great for that. We also do a lot of left nostril breathing, if people are able to do that. And then just strengthening their diaphragms, because we can't necessarily exercise. We're not out there pounding the pavements anymore. Our exercise is usually couch to chair to bed, but teaching these people how to strengthen their diaphragm very gently, very slowly, makes a huge difference, because that posture, that we get when we sit all day, just sort of makes all the issues they make them all worse.
Yeah. Why do you think low breath hold presents as a symptom?
I don't know. It is just one of those weird ones, because, like I said, so many of the people with long COVID were athletes before. So, like I said, I could chug along a pretty fast pace to run a marathon. So, and I was a good swimmer, and I could, hold my breath underwater and breathe every 7 strokes. So that is indicative of, there was not anything wrong with my lungs at the time. So now I'm dealing with long COVID. I can't hold my breath. So what has changed? And it has to be, I don't know if it's the function of our lungs or the tolerance that we have to CO2, but we do not tolerate the feeling of air hunger and being suffocated, because we deal with that all the time anyway. So, like I said, that's one of the things we tend not to go to. We don't do a lot of breath holds, because they just make our symptoms worse. They add that anxiety in. And so, we tend to just try and focus on the calm breathing. And
my brain's going crazy with questions. Do you have you observed people, maybe in yourself, that they can't hold their breath for very long, but they can hum for longer?
Yes.
What do you think's going on there?
I think it's as soon as we start thinking about changing our breath, then we start trying to change our breath. That's sort of that whole thing of like, okay, she just told me that I've got to do a longer exhale and I'm going to try and do this, but they actually just put themselves right back into that sympathetic. Whereas when they're humming, I always associate them with, you're humming. We walk around the house humming when we're happy. We, the whole vagal tone humming. And it's almost like they're getting out of their own way, or we're getting out. I'm exactly the same. I get out of my own way and I just allow that to happen. But Mike, it's bizarre, because, every single client that I work with, they tend towards different exercises. So I I can present them with 10 different self-regulation, and I have my favorites, but they all have their own favorites. Some people don't like humming. So it's like, it's just like long COVID. It's like, it's not this cookie cutter. It's making things work for the person that's sitting in front of you.
Yeah, I found that to be so true. It's a bit like diet, isn't it? It's like some foods certain people thrive on, and some foods we just can't. You know, I might love a good curry, but for somebody else, it's like their nightmare. Yeah, and I found, I don't work with long COVID people, but I've found it's shocking, like how one breathing exercise somebody will just absolutely adore and they thrive off, and for the other person it just stresses them out, and it's just finding that balance. It makes sense what you're saying. So here's one for you. This is going to make you shudder as an oxygen advantage coach. You're going to, like, you know, you're going to get the garlic out. Have you seen any data on hyperventilation techniques and long COVID?
I've tried them.
Have you? How did that go?
Disaster.
Tell us about that.
I tried Wim Hof when I was first dealing with long COVID. And, you know, someone had said, oh, if you're having breathing problems, you got to try this breathing exercise. And, you know, being an athlete, I was like, yeah, gung-ho into this breath holds. And it caused me the most incredible fatigue and relapses. And also I couldn't do it. I just, you know, I couldn't hold my breath. I couldn't do that, you know, when we do the extended breath holds, in, out, in, out, in. I just couldn't do it. I just would collapse before the end of that. And I'm, you know, since then, that's why Oxygen Advantage and Butico have been sort of the pillar of the education that I use to modify the exercises, because they are certainly more focused on the down regulation. But I can easily floor myself by literally holding my nose and thinking that I'm going to walk for 30 paces with my nose blocked. I will be, that causes me post-exertional malaise. So it will probably cause incredible fatigue a couple of days later. They don't know, but it is definitely something that they see with people with long COVID. The thought that we can do something, and that maybe, you know, we go out for a walk, and it's not that we feel exhausted afterwards. It is a 2-day or maybe 3-day lag that, you know, we just literally cannot get out of bed. And, you know, for someone that thinks a recovery session, you know, like I'd do a workout and I'd recover by the next day and, you know, be back into the training routine. But that is not the case with people with long COVID that have that post-exertional malaise. And, you know, that's one of the frustrating things, because if that's your identity of, you know, that you use exercise as kind of like a way to feel good about yourself, then that's taken away from you, as is a lot of things with long COVID, you know, people's livelihoods, because they can't function at work if they're so tired. And, you know, we're talking exertional malaise as being exercise, but Mike, unfortunately, with long COVID, exertion could be too much thinking. It could be too much emotional stress or physiological stress. You know, you can plummet from a 10 to a 2 very, very quickly. Like I said, I see it all the time. I see these people and they're like, I overdid it 2 days ago, and they'll sit in my breathing class, and if we're doing sort of just very basic movements, they don't partake.
So if somebody's watching this and they haven't been diagnosed with long COVID, but they've got some of these symptoms, is it like a self-diagnosis process? Do you need to get diagnosed from a doctor? What would that, if someone's sitting there, well, I've got brain fog or low energy, or I've got this delay malaise going on, what could they do to kind of move themselves forward? Do they need to get diagnosed first?
Well, you can get diagnosed if the doctor is understanding of the symptoms of long COVID. But there is that whole thing, is there a treatment for it? Then the answer to that is no. There is certainly a lot of support for people with long COVID on the social media sites. So Facebook, and some of the Instagram, the social media. And that's actually where most of the people with long COVID sit, because we're a very isolated community. We don't, I don't know, I've never met anyone in person with long COVID. And so, these groups that form on Facebook are a lifeline for people, because they offer the support and the recognition that these people actually have long COVID. And so I would say, there's plenty of information out there now available on the internet about long COVID symptoms. And then obviously it's a choice that we make whether we need to approach a physician to get that diagnosis, or whether you choose to, help alleviate your symptoms with some of the alternative things that we know work.
Yeah,
Breathwork being one of those.
That's really useful. So it's about, and maybe we can, when this video goes out, maybe we can link to some of the support groups, and we'll obviously link to your details as well, so people can find out more. A couple of bits I'm curious about. I think you said you caught the Anders Olsen podcast I did a couple of months ago about CO2.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, this guy's just incredible. If people haven't watched it yet, I'll link to that. So he's invented something called the Carbo Inhaler, and he's promised me one. I haven't got it yet. And essentially, you connect it to a soda stream, and you can adjust how much CO2 you're going to inhale. And it's all about adjusting the chemo. Are you curious, like what that might do? Would you stay away from that? What are your thoughts on that?
No, I tell you what, I'm curious about anything that can help people, and I'm usually the guinea pig. So I will try things. If I hear, you and I had a discussion about the nicotine patch.
Yeah, let's talk about that as well.
But the CO2. So I listened to your podcast, and I've been dipping my face in club soda every morning, the carbonated water. And I would be so interested in that, that device, because I think it could really help people with long COVID, because like I said, our tolerance to CO2 is in the toilet. And the other thing I talk about is like putting a little bit of baking soda in some water, because that helps, the CO2 level. So anything that we can do, hands cupping, brown bag, I think that could be certainly something that people that are struggling with their breathing would certainly entertain.
Yeah. Let me see if I can connect you afterwards with Anders, and you can have a conversation.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'd be fascinated about that. Talk to us about the nicotine then, because I just heard that, and I don't know, I've not looked into this at all, but apparently, I don't even know what a spike protein is, but I've heard the term 1,000 times, but apparently it's the same shape as the spike protein, the nicotine. I don't know. So tell us what's going on with the nicotine and what's going on there. Yeah.
So the nicotine patch is something obviously that's out there on the Facebook pages, and we get some of these research papers that we all kind of grab hold of. And the nicotine patch is you using just the tiniest bit of the patch, or that's how I used it, and just would put it on in the morning, take it off at night. The idea is that the spike protein, I might get this wrong, binds to the nicotine and then exits the body. So one of the theories with the long COVID is that spike protein, or the virus, has embedded itself into our organs and we've never cleared it. And that's why we get this myriad of symptoms. So they're looking at, certain supplements that you would take to clear the spike protein. And the nicotine patch is thought to be one of those. And you can ask anyone that's got long COVID, they will tell you that they're probably taking 10, 15 supplements that they're thinking might clear that spike protein out of the body, because that spike protein tends to move around. So when you start having long COVID symptoms, it's not like you just continue with the same symptoms throughout that long COVID journey. Often they start changing. You'll get some heart rate issues and then that subsides. And then you get the reactivation of like the herpes virus. I had shingles so badly during long COVID. And, I was tested for Epstein-Barr virus and it showed up positive. But, I had that years and years ago. I had that as a child. So it's like the reactivation of certain viruses, or having, being fine and then having a slew of digestive issues. It's like, what is going on? So this little thing, I think, is just, burrowing around the body. It's been shown in the macrophages of the lungs. It's been shown in the bone marrow. It's definitely affected our gut biome. It's definitely cognitive. So it's probably, gone the blood-brain barrier. So it really has messed with, the whole system. That's why this whole dysautonomia we get, because that's kind of what we're dealing with.
Yeah. Jesus. And have you felt any benefits using the nicotine, and did it change anything, or is it hard to say?
It's hard to say, because like I said, I try so many things. It's when you are sick, you go for like incremental changes, positive changes, and you'll try something, and then who knows? It's kind of who knows, but I'm less symptomatic now than I was 4 years ago. I'm less symptomatic now than I was 2 years ago. But could I say that is due to the nicotine patch? Maybe it's due to the fact that I've been putting my face in baking soda, in carbonated water. We don't know what is actually helping us. But we know the things that make us worse. And those are the things we kind of have to avoid. Those are the stresses of life that put us down into that, the fight or flight. Those are the things that are going to cause us to get worse, not better.
So linking to that then would be a question around coherence breathing. And I know Patrick in the OA has a version, I forget what he calls it now, and I think he does like a 4-6 breath. But then there is the classic resonant frequency coherence, which is like 5.5. And I know everybody's got their own frequency, but the 5.5 seems to be the catch-all. Have you played with this? Have you seen any studies around this, or have you got any testimonials? Because my understanding about coherence is it's a very balanced breath. It's a slow breath. It's very good for autonomic regulation. It's good for the heart. I had a cardiologist on here saying that it can make the heart younger in terms of helping it beat differently, and there's a flow state happening. There's all these benefits. So I'd be curious if anybody's really gone for it along any long COVID clients where they've been doing 20 minutes, an hour of it a day for 6 months. Have you got anything around those kind of case? Yeah, I'll go for it. Yes.
I tell you what, Mike, don't take this the wrong way. I go to bed with you and I wake up with you. I listen to your resonance 20-minute download every single night before I go to sleep. And every morning that I wake up, I do that 20 minutes. Now, I'm going to just sit here and tell you that my heart rate variability has improved significantly. But I'm 4 years in now. So if you'd asked me 2 years ago to do that resonance breathing, there is no way that I could have done a 5 and a 5.5 and a 5.5. It is something that after 3 years of breath training, I have finally been able to do it. And it's like, okay, so it is a huge change in my life by having that. But the thing that I can't offer up to people with long COVID is to say, you know what, this will, because most of them can't hold their breath for that long. So if you can imagine that you've got a Bolt score of between 3 and 6, then doing a 5-5 breath would put them into, they'd probably start hyperventilating.
Yeah.
So even when we talk about cadence breathing for our clients with long COVID, we start them off at an inhale for 2, exhale for 3. We're just trying to, like baby steps. It's like be gentle and start them. And then, sometimes we can change the ratio a little bit. But I can honestly say I used to have an HRV of like 2. It was so low. And some mornings it was just, I'd be like, I might as well just go back to bed because I know what's coming. And now I can see an improvement by doing 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening. And, and as an aside, I was just going to say that, there's a lot more females with long COVID, teaching them about using their breath throughout their cycle, or especially if they're in peri or menopause. That resonance breathing has been shown to help their hot flushes. And, if I can get them doing that breathing, I know that will help alleviate their long COVID symptoms, but also help their menopause. And can you imagine going through the double whammy of hormone changes and long COVID? It's like, oh my gosh, Thankfully I'm done with that one. But, I see these people and it's like even the menstruation is so affected by long COVID. We get those crashes right before the cycle. And, it's all to do with our hormones.
Yeah. Wow.
So
it's not an area. I mean, we know George, don't we? It's not something I've gone deep down. I probably should do having a partner. But I know we've got our mutual connection, Georgie, and she's deep down this women's breathing as well, which is fascinating. She gave me a lecture a couple of years ago, which was really good. Okay, that's interesting about the coherence. I've got a friend, and you might know Tom Granger, who does Aria Breath. He has something called Slow Flow, and I think Alicia Murray, who Nesta references quite a lot in his book, she does something similar, which is they get people on a higher breath rate and they just slowly bring them down over time, which is what you're doing, I'm doing.
Yeah.
I've had a few clients where there's a I don't have this track, it's somebody else's, but there's a 9 breaths per minute coherence track, which has been quite useful for some of my clients because they can't get down to that 5. But okay, that's interesting. Yeah, that's fascinating. So if we bring this home then, in terms of like if somebody's watching this and think, okay, where do I start next? I've got some of these symptoms. I think I've got long COVID. What are some of the things that I could do after this podcast that's going to help me start to recover or get back on that, move forward on that journey?
The thing that I will go to is, if you are a dysfunctional breather, one of the best things you can do for yourself and your recovery is learn to functionally breathe. That's number one. So look it up. And then once you've done that, to look into some of those self-regulation exercises. There's information out there about long COVID symptoms on the internet. I know that although we don't have a web page, we've got longcovidbreathing.com, and that has a link to sort of some of our videos and courses, and I've done a couple of workshops for Oxygen Advantage. So even that would be a great place to go and look at one of those free workshops and listen to, what people with long COVID experience. And, and if that is the case, then reach out to either Facebook groups or, if you have a physician who will help you with your symptoms, then that would be great too.
Yeah, no, wonderful. So we're going to link to everything for you. So you said the 17th of March is Long COVID Awareness Day.
Yeah, it's today.
So we'll get
Is it? No, it's the 15th today.
15th.
Yeah.
Is it? So it's Sunday, is it? Yeah. Okay.
No, it's
so let's
today.
get that.
It is the 15th.
Oh, it is today. It is today.
15th,
Okay.
yeah.
Right.
I
okay.
don't know what day it is, Mike. It's
okay.
a day I could go out
well,
for a walk. That's what day it was.
yeah. Yeah. Just a couple of last bits that are just, again, in my head, just curious. Benefits of sauna or cold, like so the thermogenesis stuff. Have you seen anything there?
I just had a sauna this morning.
Yeah.
I keep reading articles about sauna, and that is something that I've been doing. I do try to do my cold shower,
Mm-hmm.
for the benefits that, to reset the immune system. I haven't done any of the immersions. I know that there are people with long COVID. I know my partner who works with me with the breathing, Jackie, she does a lot of cold water swimming and talks very positively about how that helped her recovery. So yeah, there's a lot of information. The other thing is hyperbaric. I haven't actually tried it, but I know that I've read things about it. I just don't have access to one here. But there are some of those alternative therapies, like, we know acupuncture, we know natural supplements and some of the other things. But yes, sauna, I do, and a cold shower when I'm feeling brave.
Yeah.
And,
I know that feeling.
And one of the podcasts that I followed and I found really interesting, Mike, one of yours, was the TRE.
Yeah.
I got down on the floor and I followed that doctor's instructions and I started shaking like a dog. And it was the most bizarre thing because I thought, you know what, I can stop this. I can control anything. And, that is what long COVID is. That is a definition of trauma. Having something happen to us that we don't give permission for. And so a therapy like that, I think that has got a place with people with long COVID because that trauma is keeping us kind of stuck and chronic stress and, anything that we can do to alleviate, certain symptoms that we have.
Yeah.
So your podcast has been a huge wealth because you offer some of the alternatives. And, when people listen to them, it's like, we are grasping for help, Mike. It kind of makes me want to cry that we are so desperate to get our lives back. And that's why you go down, and I don't even want to call them rabbit holes, because if they help us feel better, that's a win. We're looking for tiny little wins.
Yes.
And, and that's why I know that I follow your podcast. I've joined your breathing group for the support. And it's just been, like I said, support is everything when you are isolated and, you haven't got people around you that you're able to talk to.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, it's like the whole community thing is so important, isn't it? People that we can share these things with. Last, just curiosity here. Have you gone down the route of earthing / grounding at all for this?
Yeah.
How anything to share there?
I tell you what, it makes me feel good. I literally go outside. I mean, I'm lucky. I live in Arizona. I have sunshine, and I have outside. I can go out and ground and sit in nature. I haven't done any earthing as far as the bed and that kind of stuff. But I make sure every single day I take my shoes and socks off and I go out and I'm standing on what we call the great big pill of anti-inflammatory, and do my breathing. You know, and
Yeah.
I've done many videos for, you know, the easy things that we can do that are free. You know, the grounding, the earthing, you know, the cold shower,
Yes.
dry skin brushing for the lymph system, you know, that self-massage, the supplements, anything that we can do. I mean, it's like, I'm putting it out there because I want to be able to help other people.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Vikki, and that comes across, and I want to say thank you for helping spread this message and for coming on here to do that. And we're going to link to everything down below. Do you have any final messages for people, any way to close off the podcast?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'll tell you what, if you've got long COVID, there is support for you and there is help for you, but I'm not going to cry about it. But there are people out there that will help you and that want to kind of hold your hand through the journey. It's a tough one, and none of us know when it's going to end, but there are people that recover. So that's always a little bit of a support in itself. But there are a lot of people who are in your boat, and you know, there's a huge community out there that would like to support your journey back to health.
Yeah, thank you. And it sounds like there's an element here of, and I think this is true to almost everything, about being kind and patient with yourself as you go through this.
Yeah, that's so important. That you know, Mike, there's a silver lining to this whole 4 years of a word that begins with H and ends in L. Is I've learned kindness for myself. I've learned patience. I've learned how I can help other people, you know, and I know that when I recover, I'm going to come back stronger because I've learned to breathe properly. But, you know, the whole thing about pacing and not taking ourselves too seriously, I know that's tough when you feel awful, but it is those little wins. You know, it's like we have to drop our expectations. But the kindness, the patience, the gratitude, the support, community, all those things are so important. And as humans, it has opened my eyes to the kindness of people, you know, that they're all willing to help each other. And, you know, and that's a good thing. Like I said, there are silver linings.
Yeah. Well, keep doing what you're doing. Keep sharing the good word, and if there's anything more we can do, then obviously let me know. We can obviously do this again in another 6 months or a year. I'm going to get this one straight out in our community tonight, so we can at least get this out on the awareness day. Wonderful. All right, Vikki, thank you so much for being with us on the podcast. And
thank you.
Yeah, keep going. You're doing great work, and keep us updated. And everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you.
Cheers. Hey, thank you so much for sticking all the way through to the end of that podcast. I hope you enjoyed the guest as much as I did, and I hope you learned a couple of things there as well. And you're really in the 1% of people that really make it to the end of a podcast. So I want to say personal thank you for your time, attention, and trust in this process where we learn all these different breathing techniques and wellness things from all these wonderful experts. And I wanted just to ask you a question before we jump into the breathing exercise, and it's this. Do you feel like your breathwork practice could be deeper? Do you feel like there are things you haven't yet unlocked and you're not quite sure what to do? Maybe there's so many breathing techniques out there and there's so much contradictory information, it all just gets a bit much and it's like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Well, this has been me. You know, even all this stuff that I've done, you know, I'm too busy to do my breathwork, or what exercise should I do? Bit lonely talking to, you know, people that just by myself in this room a lot. And so we thought long and hard about this, and we put together a community. And this is an online community called Take a Deeper Breath. The link is down below. You pay per month. There's no contract. We've got over 100 really lovely people in there, breathwork instructors and just the general public as well. And we're all just trying to figure this out. We go live almost every single day. We do different breathing techniques. I bring in my expert friends to come and teach us through some classes. Everything's recorded. So it doesn't matter if you miss a week, everything's in there for you to watch. I also put in my breathing course, which is on sale right now for like $500. You get that straight away. And the best part is it's completely risk-free. If you're not happy or you don't want to be in the community, you've got a 7-day money-back promise, just let me know. My goal is for you to fall in love with us in this community, breathe with us, have the accountability. Because I would imagine most of us, the problem's not knowledge. A bit like diet, for me, I know what I should and shouldn't eat. But it's only when I have an accountability coach things change. And it's been the same with this community. Knowing that we're going live each day to do breathing exercises means that I'm doing my breathing exercises. I'm feeling calmer, more relaxed, more open, and it's wonderful to connect with these people. So the breathing exercise is about to start. Do the breathing, relax, chill out with me, and then just come and have a look. Come and have a little sneaky peek of what's going on over at the Take a Deeper Breath community. I'd love to see you in there and have a chat with you and do some breathing with you and ask me questions. And yeah, it's taking breath work to the next level, because I really do believe when we breathe together, we breathe better. So it's a bit of a slogan, but I really do believe that. I believe when we're live, there's a focus. We're not looking at our phones. We're in that community, and it makes a big difference. Here's the breathing exercise. Thank you so much, and I'll see you later. Cheers. Hello, my friends, and welcome to Take a Deep Breath. My name is Mike. I'll be your breathwork coach, and today's breathing exercise is called the psychological sigh, made popular by neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Huberman. Now, rather than going into all the science now, I'm going to put a link to his podcast where he talks about this and so much more with breathing. But for now, I want to just get stuck straight into the exercise. This exercise is fantastic for helping down-regulate our nervous system, which basically, fancy terms, means calm us down and let us have lower feelings of stress. Now, who doesn't want that? So let's get stuck straight in. Really, really simple. We're going to breathe in through the nose, and we're going to breathe in 60-70%, and then we're going to do a second inhale, and that's like a sip more of air, and that's going to help open up our lungs. And then we're going to breathe out really nicely and slowly through the mouth, triggering a rest and digest parasympathetic relaxation response. And I'm going to take you through about 10 rounds of this. Now, normally after 2 or 3 you start to feel the effects quite quickly, but you can do all 10 because why not? It helps us relax. So get comfortable, sit up nice and straight, nice and tall, keep that diaphragm as open as possible, good posture. I'll just guide you through the first one so you can see, and then we'll do them together. So we're going to go in through the nose, and then second time, and then out through the mouth. And you can find your own pace and just use me as a guide. And already I feel calm from that first one, but let's do 10 together now, okay? Hopefully starting to feel a bit calmer. Let's continue. Relaxing the neck, relaxing the jaw, relaxing the face muscles, the eye muscles. Let's do 3 more together. Inhale double through the nose and out through the mouth. And we'll do a final one together. Really smile your way through this. And as the exhale comes, focus on bringing total relaxation to your body. I already feel so much more relaxed than at the start of this video. I hope you do too. So a final one together. In through the nose. And a sit more. And hold a little and out through the mouth. Total relaxation, total peace. And play with that breath. You know, I've interpreted that from Dr. Andrew Huberman. Play with it however you want. I really like to emphasize the because for me that brings even more relaxation. Something about stimulating the vagus nerve through the kind of vocal cords, and it's something that's really powerful just to help down-regulate us, let us feel a bit calmer, a bit more relaxed, and I think we could all do with that today. So your gift, your free exercise, check out Dr. Huberman's full breathing podcast. It's such a good podcast in general, neuroscience. He goes into all sorts of things. He's got a particularly great one with Jack Feldman, which he's been studying breath for I think 30 years. So thank you for watching Take a Deep Breath. If you're interested in working with me one-on-one, or you'd like to take on my breathing course, which has got a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk, check out those links below. And if you'd like to do another breathing exercise, check out this. And maybe you'd be interested in learning a bit more about breathing. There's a fantastic breathing podcast here. Alright, I'll see you on the next video. Take care and remember to breathe. Cheers.